From Russia with Love is one of the best all-time James Bond movies because it was a real espionage movie, not laden with gadgets, but with a solid plot, solid acting, and brilliant writing. One of the characters who deserves to be in our character spotlight is Rosa Klebb, played flawlessly by Lotte Lenya. She adds so much dimension to this movie through both her character's persona and Lotte Lenya's acting as she becomes Rosa Klebb. So let's swing our spotlight onto Rosa Klebb.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one because she's such a great character.
She is.
All right, so now in the book, she was Colonel Rosa Klebb, and she was a woman to be feared. She's described as having the most important instinct, the sex instinct. Now, Kronstein was certain she was a neuter, having had sex with men and women, maybe enjoying it physically. But the sex was, quote, from Fleming, no more than an itch, unquote, which, quote, relieved her of so many human emotions and sentiments and desires, end of quote. I love the way that Fleming describes her here.
That says so much right there. Yeah. That says so much about her character.
Yeah, I mean, it's the essence of coldness in a person, which is exactly what she needs for her job.
Yeah.
Now, Fleming also describes her as a skilled torturer. In fact, she would let no torturing take place without her. She kind of enjoyed it. She had this blood-stained smock and a stool. And the one to be tortured was lying on a table with her head hanging over. And she would sit there calling out torture numbers like number 1 or number 10, etc. And change it when she heard the screams. I mean, this is one evil woman.
Yeah.
The book said she would, quote, breathe in the screams as if they were perfume.
Oh, I love that.
Just listen to think about that. Breathe in the screams as though they were perfume. I mean, it's just, oh, great. And Tatiana and everyone knew about her reputation.
Yeah.
So Fleming has a great background on Klebb in the book, and Lotte Lenya carries this into the movie, although we don't see all the torture.
Yeah. I think this is a great background for her because when now you overlay this with what she does in the movie, and you could see now the terror in other people, and you could see the terror in her face. This is what we're going to talk about, how great she is at transferring this character from the book to the screen. We first meet Klebb very early in the movie, and she looks worried as she is speaking to number 1 after the Kronstein chess match, number 1 of Spectre.
Siamese fighting fish, fascinating creatures, brave but on the whole stupid. Yes, they're stupid. Except for the occasional one such as we have here, who lets the other two fight while he waits. Waits until the survivor is so exhausted that he cannot defend himself. And then, like Spectre, he strikes.
I find the parallel amusing.
Our organization did not arrange for you to come over from the Russians just for amusement, number 3.
All right, now remember, we were first introduced to the concept of Spectre in the movies in Dr. No, but we never saw the organization or anyone who ran it. We just knew Dr. No was part of it as he dismissed the East and West, and he focused on Spectre. Now, here in From Russia with Love, we're seeing some of the guts of Spectre, and we are introduced to Spectre here as Rosa Klebb is present, addressing number 1, who is stroking the white cat. We do not see number 1's face, just see the hands and the cat, and hear his voice, which, by the way, we know the hands stroking the cat are Anthony Dawson's, another connection to Dr. No, as he played Professor Dent, of course, and the voice of number 1, Blofeld, here is Eric Pullman. Now, this is brilliant. Klebb is intently looking at the Siamese fighting fish. Her eyes are fixated on them, and we heard the quote. She looks worried as number 1 explains how the one lets the other 2 fight and so on. And when the survivor is too exhausted to defend himself, as he said, hey, the one observing strikes just like Spectre. This is fantastic.
Yeah,
now we know a lot.
I really like this for a couple of reasons. One is it kind of sets the story up a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you look at her face as he's describing it, it's just so
fantastic. Cool. Yeah, fantastic. So we're hearing about the nature of Spectre here and the parallel between the fish and Spectre. That's a throwback to Dr. No once again here, maybe as the fish fighting could very well be the reference to the East and the West battling it out, as Dr. No pointed out to Bond during their conversation at dinner in Dr. No. And as Klebb finds the parallel amusing, and we heard number one says, hey, we didn't arrange for you to come over here from the Russians for amusement. And he calls her number 3. So she's up there in the Spectre organization, even though she's new. So, but that comment by number 1 really has her face clenched and worried.
Well, and as you're saying, her face looks worried, right? Because they show us her face and her reaction to the fish and how it parallels what number 1 is saying.
Yeah.
And we learned so much from her face here because she's stern, she's terrified or unsure, I guess. I mean, as she speaks, and I love how her eyes dart towards number 1 as she says she finds it amusing. Her eyes tell us that she's not certain number 1 will like what she's saying.
Yeah.
And her face is looking for a reaction. I mean, it's great directing and great acting here.
Yeah, this little clip shows us so much of her potential and her power as an actor, but it shows us so much about the character. Both Spectre's character as number 1 being, hey, we're not taking any crap from anybody here, including you, who we just brought over, and the terror that is in her because she's new. She doesn't know a lot about this guy yet. So this is fantastic.
Okay, so let's see the next part of the scene.
Yeah.
Come in, Kronstein. Sit down, number 3, while we listen to what number 5 has devised for us.
All right. I love this. Again, what a great setup, right? When Kronstein enters, she turns to the door, and then to number 1, as if to say, what's going to happen here? She doesn't know what's going on. Again,
yeah, it's like all of a sudden this new guy's coming in.
Yeah, and again, for her, no words are spoken here, but all of this is communicated to us by her body language, her turn, her gaze at the door, and then to number 1, and we feel the tension because of Rosa Klebb. It's this brilliant stuff. She's fantastic here.
Yeah, she doesn't say a word with her mouth, but she says a lot with how she acts this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope Kronstein's efforts as director of planning will continue to be as successful as his chess.
All right, we heard her say that because she wants to take the pressure off of her and put it on number 5. Now, again, Kronstein, we think, has been around, Inspector. We don't know for sure how long he's been around, but he's number 5. She's number 3. So there's going to be some immediate tension there, right? He's coming in as number 5. So she here is kind of like, hey, I hope his plans are as successful as his chess, because all I'm going to do is execute his plans. So this is good. Her face and her words here show she's not really sure of herself yet or of the situation yet. She was a Russian spy, and now she moved over to Spectre. So she really does not know what to expect, what may happen, how things happen, or how merciless number 1 is. She's genuinely worried. And this reality shows brilliantly on her face. I mean, pay attention to her eyes. She is a master with her eye movement, and she can tell a complicated story with her face.
Yeah, and when you say that with her eyes, she never looks at Kronstein.
Yeah.
When she's talking to Blofeld, she's looking at him, and her eyes just kind of flick over whenever she's mentioning number 5.
Yeah. She's looking for reassurance.
Yeah, well, I also wasn't sure if they may have had a past. I don't get the impression from this that she either likes nor trusts number 5, because she knows what his plan is. So there's something had to happen here before this that we don't see.
Maybe, and maybe not, because I think she definitely does not want her to be responsible or held accountable by number 1, who she knows is going to be a vicious guy, if Kronstein's plan fails, because it's his plan, not her plan. She's going to execute it. So I think
that's true. I just think she would have looked at him if she had.
Again, she's scared.
Yeah, that could be. That could be.
Yeah, she's scared. And her facial reaction is concern and terror all at once. And this is not the last time we will see this terror on Klebb in this very same room, as we know what happens later. So remember, From Russia with Love is a revenge outing for Spectre on Bond for killing Dr. No. This underlies all that is going on. Yes, Kronstein will make the plan to get the Lecter from the Russians and needs the British Secret Service to help. But again, this is a plan against Bond, not only to get the Lecter and sell it again, but to get Bond.
Well, and that's kind of interesting because in most of the series, well, let's forget Daniel Craig's version of the series because we should. But in most of the series, there's not a lot of continuity where other missions are referenced. But here, getting Bond is a big part of this because of Dr. No.
Yes. And they actually want to kill Bond, right? That's their plan. Get their revenge for him killing Dr. No. So as Kronstein tells his plan, Klebb's face again is to be watched. You got to stare at it and look at it. She looks with her eyes at Kronstein, then quickly back at number one, like you were saying, and her lips part a bit as though she is taking a scared breath as she hears the plan. This is magnificent acting. That little lip movement where her lips part is fantastic because it really shows she's taking that little scared breath, like, ooh, what's going to really happen here? Is number one going to be supporting me if this plan fails, or is he going to, whack me? She obviously was aware of Kronstein's plan because she is asked by number one if she's ready to carry out the plan. So,
And the help of the British Secret Service. Naturally, neither the Russians nor the British will be aware.
So I mean, that was Kronstein talking, and we know they're going after Bond, but they need his help first, and then they'll kill him. All right, she says.
Yes, number one. The operation will be organized according to Kronstein's plan. I have selected a suitable girl from the Russian consulate in Istanbul. She's capable, cooperative, and her loyalty to the state is beyond question.
This is, again, fantastic, right? She has everyone she needs already selected. Her face is serious, her voice is steady, yet a bit shaky as we listen to her discussion of the operation. And the use of her eyebrows, well, she raises them as she says the operation. And that shows you something. When you raise your eyebrows while you're speaking, you're either emphasizing a point, showing you're listening and understanding what has been said, or it may show disapproval. In this case, we do not think she's showing disapproval. She's not going to be disapproving of number one, but she's using it as a punctuator during her speaking. Yes, I have a plan in place and the people we need are ready to go. She says that with her eyebrows. I mean, this is
and she keeps going with this. I'm not looking at Kronstein. She's looking at Blofeld and her eyes just dart over to Kronstein when she mentions his plan. I'm going to do his plan, and her eyes dart kind of like, yeah, this guy's plan, not my plan.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That's
so
exactly.
She's good. If the plans don't work, these are his plans, right?
That's exactly what she's trying to establish. Yeah.
Don't come back at me. And we'll see this little exchange that we're talking about now. It's going to be reenacted in the same room, and Kronstein and Klebb will be there with number one, and then Morzeny will be there a little bit later in the movie.
Yeah.
I just love that her facial expressions and movements are directly in sync with what she's saying. And because of that, she's saying much more than the words she's saying. And she's doing that with her face. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. It is. Now, number one's concerned that Russia might have spilled the beans on Rosa Klebb's defection, and that the Russian spy that Klebb intends to use, Tatiana, might know that Klebb has defected to put the plan in jeopardy. But so now she must defend herself to number one.
It's most unlikely she would know I'm now working for Spectre. Moscow has kept my defection secret from everyone but a few members of the Presidium.
All right, so she's defending herself there and saying, no, that's not going to happen, number one. Don't worry about it. Wow. How tough is Spectre? Number one's response? For your sake, I hope so.
He is a ruthless bastard, isn't he?
He is a ruthless. Well, we don't know. We're just learning this, right? If she was not worried enough before, she should be now. She may be doubting herself for leaving her motherland, Russia, at this point. Number one asks Kronstein about his plan, and it is this exchange that Kronstein spells out that the British will send James Bond, of course, and that Spectre can now get the revenge on James Bond for killing Dr. No. So all that's great.
Let his death be a particularly unpleasant and humiliating one.
Good. I shall put my plan into operation straight away, and there will be no failure.
Yeah, you gotta love this too, right? Make Bond's death a humiliating one. Oh man! And he say,
Dan,
number one saying,
what do we always say? Just shoot him.
just shoot him. But I mean, he's saying this as number one is saying this as he feeds a fish to his cat. You look at Klebb's face, and there's this, whoa, this is a bigger plan than I thought look in her face. I mean, it's just terrific. We immediately switched to one of our favorite scenes with Klebb, her trip to see Red Grant. This is so well played by everyone, especially Lotte Lenya.
Yeah, no, I will point out we always talk about Red Grant because he calls him that in the movie. I mean, the books, but he actually doesn't call him Red Grant in the movies. It's just
No.
Grant. So in the novel, again, during the inspection of Grant, he's totally naked, and Klebb was touching him and probing him, and she smacks him with brass knuckles. In the book, they called them, I think, knuckle dusters, but we call them brass knuckles here.
Yeah.
We see that scene where she hits him with the brass knuckles in the movie as well, but that does come out of the book.
Yeah, they couldn't let him be naked here in the movie in 1963. So he's got a towel around him, but that's all he's got on him, and she's looking him over, right? So we see this masseuse stripped down to give Red Grant the rub down. Of course, you can't do that with a skirt and blouse on, apparently.
Well, they'll get oil on him.
Bra and panties is much better. Then we hear a helicopter approaching, and it is bringing Klebb to Spectre Island here.
Welcome to Spectre Island. Great honor.
Yeah. Now you'll notice here that it's likely that this is the same helicopter that they will later use in the chase, where Bond shoots it down with his AR-7 rifle as the co-pilot was about to drop a hand grenade on Bond. It's a Hiller UH-12E helicopter used for the movie, and Klebb uses the same helicopter here as she lands on Spectre Island.
And
Pretty
you've
cool.
sat in that helicopter.
And we sat in that helicopter, right? Because the Ian Fleming Foundation, who collects James Bond vehicles and puts them out for exhibition, terrific organization, has this helicopter. And we were in that helicopter.
Okay, so as a little bit of an aside here,
Yep.
From Russia with Love was the first Eon production movie to feature a helicopter. And every Bond movie that has been produced since, except The Man with the Golden Gun, has a helicopter in it.
Ah, that's pretty interesting.
I love
okay.
fun stuff like that.
Man with the golden gun. That's right. Then, yeah. Wow. That's pretty cool.
So always look for the helicopter.
Always look for the helicopter.
All right, so let's see what happens when she gets out of the helicopter.
I hope you had a pleasant flight.
My time is limited. Is the man I requested ready?
His dossier.
Good. Donald Grant, convicted murderer, escaped Dartmoor prison in 1960, recruited in Tangier in 1962. Excellent.
She's all business. Right?
All right. Here's a great shot of her, right? And the difference between what she was doing in front of number one and now. So Klebb gets out of the helicopter with authority. When Morrison tells her that he wishes he had a good flight, she says, hey, my time's limited. Is the man ready that I wanted? So all this bam, bam, bam down the business. She's tough now and more now in her element. The scene shows a different side of Klebb. After all, she's number 3. So she's up there. Her body language and face say all of this as well as she speaks with Morzeny and reviews Donald Red Grant's dossier. This is the Russian deserter that Spectre hired and wanted. This is Rosa Klebb at her best. Now she's in control.
And I like how you say we see a different side of her.
Yeah.
Right? Because she's in charge right now.
Yep.
And Lotte Lenya's just flawless in the way she communicates to Morzeny
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
And to us, this is what Klebb is really all about. She's a brutal force on whoever's side she's on. And here, she's on Spectre's side.
Yep. Terrific. Now, there's one part of the scene that really brings out who is in charge here.
Where is he now?
At the lake. Bring him to my office, will you?
Take me to the lake.
Through the training area.
All right. Klebb asks Morzeny where Grant is, and he said, by the lake. She said, hey, take me to the lake. So for a second, and it really is a second or maybe 2 seconds, Morzany leans into Klebb as if to take her arm and lead her to his office.
Yeah.
And she's like, she leans backward enough so he cannot touch her, stares at his hand near her elbow, and then stares at him disdainfully and says, "Take me to the lake." This is great acting. She's spectacular here in a couple of seconds that screams, "I am in control here now." Wow, this is a powerful moment for Klebb.
Oh, it absolutely is. And the look on her face when she like backs off, like, how dare you touch me, you stupid, you stupid low life, whatever number you are. You must be on number 152. I'm number 3. You don't touch me.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, it
Absolutely
really
fantastic.
was.
To get to Grant, they're going to walk through the training grounds, as he said.
I hope our work here meets with your approval.
Training is useful, but there is no substitute for experience.
I agree. We use live targets as well.
I mean, this is fantastic too, right? They're walking through the training grounds. She struts with confidence, looking left and right at what is going on with guns firing for target practice, karate exercises. But when she slows down to watch the flamethrower weapon, Morzany and his guy slow down too, and they step behind her. They're a step behind her. And when she quickens her pace again, they do as well. And really, basically, a step behind her all the way. This is in deference to her being the leader here and in charge. They must please her, and they know it.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Hey, come on, Dan. Who hasn't been out with their boss and had to suck up a little bit? I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, here they're doing it, and it's obvious. And she and the rest of them play this off brilliantly. Great
Well,
stuff.
and I also love the fact that she slows down in front of the flamethrower, because to me, that's one of the craziest weapons. Because if you just ran through the flame, you probably wouldn't get singed that much because there's the guy running behind it, right? But I just love she slows down
Well,
at that scene, because I love a flamethrower. It looks great on screen.
Yeah, and we see flamethrower, right? We see flamethrowers later in Die Another Day, and hey, they use flamethrowers in World War II, real ones. So this is cool. Anyway, it shows again who is in charge, and now she's in her element.
Right. Now, as they're walking through that scene, through the practice area, they emerge into another practice area, but it looks exactly the same as the one they just walked through. It's like they repeated this scene, reusing the set. It was kind of funny when you watch it.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, I think there isn't any doubt it is the same set that they just walked through, and they're walking through again. It's like, all right, that's pretty funny. They get their money's worth out of that set.
And then when they get to the training area, they're just on this walkway, and you didn't hear the gunfire until they got into range, maybe 10 feet away. And to me, it cracks me up, because it's like, yeah, you should have heard that as you were walking. And I also love the way on that walkway she's on, she's in her low heels and she walks on the walkway, but Morzany and the henchmen walk in the dirt. Now, it could be because it's just she's in control and that's deference, but her shoes may not do as well in the dirt as their shoes because she's got a little heel. So I don't know, but this scene, I love the scene, but the second take they do on it, when you're looking at it, it does make me laugh.
Now, when Rosa Klebb and Morzany and his guy arrive where Grant is being massaged, there's a brief moment again where Lotte Lenya shows how good she is as Klebb. So she stands looking at Grant on the ground. Morzany is to her right and the other guy to her left. Their chins are down. Her chin is up, a sign that she is confident and in charge and likes what she sees. This subtlety is astounding. Great directing too, perhaps, but more than likely just great acting. This is a fantastic shot.
Really good acting on all three of their parts, because she's showing that confidence and they're showing we're a step back, which is kind of nice.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And they are behind her. Fantastic stuff. All right, Klebb says to call Grant,
I love this
and he
because
jumps up.
she won't call him. and they call him, and Grant comes over, stands up, and she doesn't say a word, but for like 10 or 12 seconds, she says a lot with her body as she's checking him out. Is this specimen? And boy, he was a specimen. Is he going to be what she wants?
Well, she's glancing down in his towel. That's the only thing he's wearing. Of course, in the book, as you said, he had nothing on. Much like in the Dr. No novel with Honey Rider.
Fleming liked his naked bodies.
She had nothing on. Yeah. Back to the movie here. She then walks around him, looking him over, up and down, almost with desire. Because when she is behind him, looking up and down and looking at his butt, her mouth is open for a second, and you can see her tongue responding. This is a shot that everyone in the world will probably miss unless you're looking for this kind of thing. It's amazing acting again. And this is a split second. It's just a subtle piece of acting that she does here that shows a lot about what she's thinking.
The other thing with this is she is not a large woman, right? She's pretty tiny. And she's she's checking out Grant here, who's just in great physical shape and bigger, and he's oiled, so his body glistens as she's looking at him. And it does definitely look like there's some desire there.
Yeah. I mean, look at her body language. It means that she's either shocked, frightened, or here it is, excited. We think it's the last. She's excited. Next time you watch this, or you're watching it on our YouTube channel, you will agree with us. It's very easy to miss.
Well, and remember in the book how she was, how sexual she was, right? So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And she was touching him in the book.
Now, we mentioned that she hits him with the brass knuckles. Listen to how she responds.
He seems fit enough. Have him report to me in Istanbul in 24 hours.
And then she walks away.
Who's in control here now? She is. Great dialogue. And again, much different, right, than her conversation with number one.
Okay, so next we're going to cut to Istanbul, and we're going to see Tatiana approaching a building, and we see Grant's watching her. And this is probably, I think, Lotte Lenya's strongest part of portraying Klebb. I mean, this is basically her interrogating Tatiana. And she seems to like Tatiana, or at least is giving that illusion.
Yeah.
in certain ways.
Yes.
Capital of State Security, Tatiana Romanova.
Come in.
All right, so in this scene, Klebb opens this door, and I love the squeak in this door. It's like, dun, dun, dun. It's a bad omen, right? And Klebb tells her to come in.
Yeah.
And this scene, the set is just fantastic. The lighting in here and the light from the windows for focus, it's just awesome the way they did this. And Klebb is set up to look authoritative without question. She's in charge here.
Oh, yeah.
And in this room,
she's
going to ask some tough questions and make some stark and threatening statements. And again, she's a smaller woman. And I'm not saying Tatiana's a large woman, but compared to Klebb, the one in charge, she's larger than her.
This is a great scene. Klebb is holding this long baton in her hand, too, which I love. It's a threatening message for Tatiana. Remember, Tatiana is still working for the Russians, and Klebb is now a Spectre agent, but Tatiana still thinks Klebb is working for the Russians. Smirch. So Klebb is dressed in this military uniform and is foreboding and dominant, even though, like you said, she's much shorter than Tatiana.
All right, so now as an aside here, what's really nice is when this scene goes forward, Rosa sits down at the desk, and she puts on these very thick glasses when she's reading Tatiana's dossier. But wait a minute. She was reading the dossier on Grant, and she didn't have any glasses on. But here, so is it that she's got these glasses on as a prop? Maybe it's to make her look meaner or sterner or scarier. I'm not exactly sure.
Maybe.
But it is interesting that she didn't need them when she was reading about Grant, but she needed them when she was reading about Tatiana.
Yeah, they're Coke bottle glasses, as they used to say. All right. Klebb gets personal here, though.
Take off your jacket. Turn around. You're a fine-looking girl. Sit down.
And I remember the book, what you were saying in the beginning. She was very sexual in the book, but to get her way, to get her job done, whatever she had to do, she would do. And here she even gets more personal. I mean,
Well, it's interesting because to me it's just like you're a fine looking girl. Like, was she trying to give her a compliment? But she said it in that stern voice of her, so it didn't really sound like she was really meaning what she was saying.
no, I think she meant what she was saying, that she was a fine looking girl, but I think it was because she's sexually attracted to both men and women from the book, as we know, that hey, she's going to do something that shows that she's
Or at least
attracted to her,
makes Tatiana
right?
believe that she
So,
is.
well, yeah, she gets
All
more
right.
personal.
And then you have had the 3 lovers.
What is the purpose of such an intimate question?
You are not here to ask questions. You forget to whom you're speaking.
I love that. This is fantastic. Again, right? Hey, you had 3 lovers. She knows the history of Tatiana. And hey, Tatiana, what the heck are you asking that kind of stuff for? And I love how she slams her baton on the desk right on the word
Yeah.
not. You are not here to ask questions. You forget to whom you are speaking. Look at Klebb's face here. She is stern. She's like chiseled marble. Really, that's how tough and stern she looks. I mean, it really is. She's just fantastic here. And on the word forget, she forcefully moves her head left to right, disapproving of the question, all with her head reinforcing the words that she's speaking. Every aspect of her voice and face intimidate Tatiana. Klebb is cold. Tatiana is entrapped. But Tatiana recovers and says she was in love. That's why she had
Well, and
lovers.
again, to me, this whole dynamic here of her having to do that with the baton and everything is interesting to me because she's in charge, but I don't know if it's because Lotte Lenya is so small as a person, you know, physically as a person, that she doesn't, she needs to do stuff like this to show her forcefulness and that she's in charge.
Well, and she is still a Russian agent as far as Tatiana knows. So, and she's a big agent in the Russian agency, right? So Tatiana's going to be afraid anyway, but she's really making her afraid. So she keeps going about Tatiana and the men, and if you were not in love, then what would have happened? So why? Because Klebb needs Tatiana to do whatever she has to do with Bond to trap him. That's where Tatiana,
Or to
that's
honey
where
trap
Klebb is
him.
going here. When whatever she has to do, just like Klebb would do. When Klebb sits on the front of her desk facing Tatiana, who is sitting in a chair, this is a powerful encounter, and Lenya plays it convincingly.
Corporal, I have selected you for a most important assignment. Its purpose is to give false information to the enemy.
Yeah, and what's cool here is as she's talking to her, Klebb puts her hand on Tatiana's knee. Now remember when Morzeny tried to put his hand on Klebb's elbow at the helicopter, she pulls back like, how dare you touch me? But here, I can touch you, right? And so this was pretty racy for 63. I mean, it was definitely a sexual come on. And here Tatiana uncrosses her legs to move Klebb's hand away. A little different way she handled that than the way that Klebb handled it when Morzeny touched her elbow.
Oh yeah, in the book it goes much further, which gives us even more insight into this scene because it's a fantastic read in the book. This whole scene from the book, Klebb tells Tatiana that she must fall in love and have sex with the British spy, and that her body belongs to the state. This is what she tells her in the book to give false info to the British, right? And just like you were saying, and there is a whole section on Rosa dimming the lights and changing into a see-through gown, trying to seduce Tatiana, but was Klebb sexy in her gown? She looked like the oldest and ugliest whore in the world.
That's right. That she looked like that's right out of the book, right? Yeah.
That's
is
right
good.
out of the book. Right out of the book. But in the movie, just the knee thing is going on. But the hint is there of seduction and woman on woman sex. Now, lesbianism or women loving women sexually in the 60s, well, here are a couple of points. Kinsey Report, 1953, estimated that 20% of women had a same sex encounter in their study, Sexual Behavior in the Human Female. Well, that's pretty amazing, 1953, that was. But in general, it was not talked about or shown. And it got to be a bigger thing as the 60s went on. But here in 1963, it was slow going. So you didn't have a lot going on or a lot being shown in 1963 in films, for sure.
From now on, you will do anything he says.
And if I refuse?
Then you will not leave this room alive.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay. Yeah. Whoever's wondering who's in charge now, okay. Yeah, Rosa's got complete control. The camera angle here and position of Klebb sitting on the desk above Tanya, who is sitting in the chair, demonstrates who is in charge again, who has the power. And Lotte Lenya pulls this off magnificently. Her body language, voice, face, looking down at Tatiana is all in perfect sync with the camera, instructing Tatiana that she will do anything the man in the photo asks. That's Bond, of course. And if she refuses, I love that. You'll not leave this room
And
alive.
also notice that little baton she's got in her hand kind of points down at her crotch as she says this. so it's kind of
wow.
like,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing I love about this is that Klebb, she's get this like little smile on her face. And she kind of telling us that she would relish in killing another if she had to.
Yeah, at that moment, she's saying, "You will not leave this room alive." Yeah, you're right.
And it's not going to
Has a
bother
little
her
smile.
a bit. In fact, she might enjoy it. In the book, they talked about that she liked watching the torture. So that little smirk of a smile tells us all we need to know about how tough and ruthless Klebb is. And Lenya pulls it off effortlessly.
All right, we're wondering how tough Klebb is or dedicated. This is it. This whole scene shows it. Her character type here is developed in the book and brought onto the screen, and she is a tough boss. Of course, Tatiana will obey Klebb's orders. Once she agrees, and Klebb is really on a roll, she will tell Tatiana what to do, how to report to her, and to keep it quiet, not to tell any others. Remember, Tanya, of course, still thinks Klebb is working for the Russians. And if Tanya talks,
I will obey your orders.
Good. Now these are your instructions. You report to me here.
Yes.
But the consulate security man must not know that I'm in Istanbul. This is classified far above his level.
I will say nothing to anyone.
If you do, you will be shot.
Again, that baton hitting the back of Tatiana's chair instead of the desk. I mean, it's very, very powerful.
I mean, all of this is a symbol of who's again in charge. And basically, she's walking around Tatiana's chair. It's really a symbol. Like, I can walk circles around you, literally.
And Tatiana's face forward
Tanya
when she's
agrees.
behind her. So she has no idea what's going on behind her.
Yeah. Right. And Tatiana, of course, agrees. She's not going to talk. You'll be shot.
Yeah, so this, to me, was really sophisticated acting on Lenya's part. I mean, and a really high level, because she's able to strike terror into Tanya and also at the same time just reveal what a badass Klebb is. So very, very cool scene.
And we get a few more subtle sexual advances by Klebb, a hand on Tanya's shoulder, stroking Tanya's hair, all as she is telling Tanya how fortunate she is to have such a delightful duty, a labor of love, as we say.
Come, my dear. You are very fortunate to have been chosen for such a simple, delightful duty. A real labor of love.
Yeah, there you go. More subtle sexual advances by Klebb because her hand's on Tanya's shoulder, it's stroking her hair, all as she's telling her this.
Yeah, now remember in the book,
wow,
Klebb can go either way sexually to get her job done. She's going to do whatever she has to do.
Yeah.
And she told Tanya that her body belongs to the state. And that's how Klebb thinks.
Yeah.
And more importantly, how she acts and by the way she's acting here, she's telling Tatiana, this is the way it is.
Again, strong acting.
Yeah, you say very strong acting. This is a really good scene to show us the power of Klebb and the power of Lenya's acting. So this, we're done with this scene now, but this was just an amazing scene to me.
Yeah. So from here, we cut to Bond and Sylvia Trench on their picnic together, and Klebb does not show up again until much later in the movie. So now we are only about 18 minutes or so into the movie, and Lotte Lenya as Rosa Klebb has had a major role so far, setting up really the rest of the movie. Another reason the character is in our spotlight and Lotte Lenya as well. Now Bond is now getting his assignment, the gadget attache case, and his orders to go to Istanbul. Of course, Grant is to meet Klebb in Istanbul as well, so we get some shots of him as well.
Good work. Who can the Russians suspect but the British? The Cold War in Istanbul will not remain cold very much longer.
Yeah, we saw that Grant just killed an agent so that the Russians will suspect the British. He gets in another car with Klebb, and she compliments him on this kill, as we just heard. She, again, is reviewing some papers in the back seat with Grant, and she has the thick glasses on again here. Okay. Her actions, words, and body language all say she is stern, in control of Grant.
And she's in charge because Grant doesn't say a word. He doesn't even he's looking forward.
Again, like I said, from this point, we do not see Klebb again for quite a while. Grant's plan is in the works. She's managing it, and we get the train scene, one of the best scenes in any Bond movie. The boat chase is to begin as well, but first...
3 men were found dead on the train at Trieste. One of them was Grant. What have you to say, number 5?
It was Klebb's choice. Her people failed.
It was your plan. They followed it implicitly.
Impossible. It was perfect.
Except for one thing. They were dealing with Bond.
See, now what's cool here is she looks at Kronstein in this scene, where when we saw them before in that room, she would just kind of dart her eyes over. Here, she actually looks at him as she's saying, we followed your plan explicitly.
We see Klebb here again. As we said earlier, he's in number 1's office again with Kronstein, like she was in the very beginning. But Bond has escaped. The Spectre does not have the Lecter. So number 1 is not happy. He's questioning number 5. And as we heard, Kronstein's saying it's Klebb's fault. Klebb's saying, hey, your plan. I just executed your plan. She doesn't want to piss off number 1, and neither does Kronstein. But one of them is pissing him off, and it's like
failure can be fatal.
Yeah. Yeah. The failure of the plan to get Bond and the Lecter is...
Yeah, so we can see that as the scene progresses here, the tension rising in Klebb's face. I mean, her whole body looks very nervous and on edge here.
We saw that in the beginning in her first meeting with number 1, and now we're seeing it again in the same office. And again, she's nervous. She's now out of her element of control and power. She's now under number 1's power and worried because the plan has not been working out.
What have you to say to that, number 3?
I love when he asks her that. The look on her face, the way she raises that right hand up and begins to clutch her jacket lapel in her chest. I mean, it's a defensive move, and it's also, I think, a self-soothing move. And she now feels that she's on the hot seat.
Yeah. And we don't know. We're watching this, and we don't know what number 1 is thinking here. Then we see number 1 press the white button again, just like we saw in the beginning of the movie when he let Kronstein in his office. But this time...
Bond is still alive, and the Lecter is not yet in our possession. I had already negotiated with Russians to return it to them. We've agreed a price, and Spectre always delivers what it promises.
It's a great...
it's not good for one of these guys.
Yeah, Morzeny comes in. They look very uncomfortable. I also like the way the camera kind of turns a little bit. It kind of goes off axis, which is telling you that something's up here.
Really, we're all wondering now what. The first time you see the movie, right? Now what? Her expression and body language put us ill at ease because we are, because of her acting, wondering what will happen next. She is standing there with her arms at her side, defenseless. That's the symbol of defenseless, right? Your arms are at your side, while Kronstein is holding his hat with both hands in front of him, so kind of protecting himself. So we don't know what's happening. And Morrison, he enters, and number one is saying how much of a failure this was, and that Spectre always delivers. Sweat is starting to develop on Klebb's face, and she plays it off magnificently.
She really does. So then we're going to see Morzeny click his shoes to release the blade on his right shoe. Now, what I love here is that this is something that we've even seen the Kingsman do a takeoff on, right? So it's kind of cool that this scene right here becomes a fairly important scene in spy movie history.
I warned you. We do not tolerate failure, number 3. You know the penalty.
Yes. Number 1.
Our rules are very simple. If you fail...
Now, she's sweating like crazy, but Kronstein isn't. He's just sitting there looking a little confused, but she's really worried here. And
well, he addressed her, right? We don't tolerate number 3.
So
right?
she
We
thinks
she's
this is it for her. And she's probably questioning her decision to leave the Russians and join Spectre at this moment.
I would at this point, yeah.
And then
I mean,
and then, when number 1 says to her, "You know the penalty," Lenya's brilliant here. The way she kind of stutteringly says, "Yes, number 1." I mean, her lips are quivering. There's perfect tension delivered to us.
Her lips are quivering,
and quickly. I mean, it's a small quiver of the lips. It's not a huge thing, but it's there. The fear is there. We see it. And then number 1 says, "Our rules are simple. If you fail," and then we know Kronstein gets kicked and dies here in 12 seconds. So all this time you're thinking she's going. And so it's a nice little twist there.
Yeah, and I love when number 1 turns to number 3 to Klebb again, and in a small gesture, she retrieves a handkerchief from her pocket and starts wiping her upper lip. I mean, this is a powerful little simple move, like, oh my God, I survived this one. And in response, she quickly snaps her handkerchief down and is at attention and says, "Yes, sir." That, we don't expect any other failures. "Yes, sir." Oh, man. I'd be questioning whether I should have left Russia too.
12 seconds. One day we must invent a faster working venom. Number 3.
Yes.
I do not wish to have to tell the Russians that there will be another delay.
There will be no delay, number 1. There's still time.
There's still time. That's great. I mean, and the thing is, it's so in character for her. So like in her first meeting with number 1 and throughout, so consistently performed by Lenya, we've got to be in awe in the way we pay attention to all the brilliant acting she does. Every step of the way, she sucks us in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep,
that's
absolutely.
Why she's in our
so
spotlight.
it's just really, really good. All right. So now we're going to fast forward again in the movie because we don't see her again until we have the big boat chase and all of that, escaping to Venice. Mm-hmm. And then we get the final curtain call for Rosa Klebb. So Bond and Tanya escape to Venice, and with the Lecter, right? And they're in their hotel room, and it looks like they're getting ready to leave. But this Lecter is still in its original case.
That baffled me. Well, that's the first thing you and I would do. We changed the case so it didn't look like it.
Yeah, you don't want to make it obvious, right? But anyways, we're in the room. The Lecter case is open, and we now, we as Bond fans, we know what's going on here. This is Rosa Klebb's swan song here, and this is what happens.
Mr. Signore.
Si, prego. And also get me the British consul.
So now you would think that Bond would know who Klebb was, right? If she was really number 3 inspector, but she walks in.
Yeah. But she's a new defector from Russia. He may have known her from Russia,
but in any case, she's the maid walking in. He's on the phone. He gives her almost no attention, which could be a fatal flaw of James Bond's here. but she is Klebb.
Yeah.
And she just comes in and she's going to do her maid business here. And Bond isn't aware of her identity. I mean, he's thinking the mission is done. We've had our little tryst here in Venice, and we're getting ready to leave.
Yeah.
As he's getting himself ready, Rose is there acting as a maid, cleaning things up. Remember, we said the Lecter case was open. Bond sees Klebb, but her back is to him as she's tidying something up. And he's like, oh, wait, I've got to close this Lecter thing. So he does close the Lecter case. And I don't know why, but for some reason he turns it towards the door and then exits into another room in their suite.
Yeah.
And so I love the way Bond, it surprised me that he closed the Lecter case there, because when she walked in, he's kind of thinking she's just meaningless to him. She's just a maid doing her job. And she doesn't look back at Bond either.
Yeah.
So this interaction of them ignoring each other was great, right? Because she does not let on to him, and he's oblivious to the fact of who she is.
To him, she was just a maid. She was just like, oh, okay, you're cleaning the room, whatever. He thought the mission was done. He got the Lecter, he's got Tanya, all good. All right. But it's a Bond movie.
Okay, so since it's a Bond movie, Klebb decides now as Bond leaves to take some action. And she grabs the Lecter case. But as luck would have it, this phone rings. And so then she goes along pretending she's dusting as Bond re-enters the room because the phone's ringing. And what's really nice about this is in the other parts of this movie, she's playing either a little bit scared when she's in front of number one, totally in control when she's with Grant and Tatiana. But here, she's playing a maid. She's playing this thing as she's not in control of anything. I'm just a maid here doing my job.
Yeah. Klebb still thinks that Tanya is on her side.
That's true. But you've got
yeah. So she
but
has
she's
an
also
ally
walking through. But she's also there, and Bond comes in with a shoulder holster and a gun. If you're a maid, that might put you off.
Yeah.
And when he gets to the phone this time, this is when Klebb really kicks it up.
Yes. Oh, Mr. Maxwell, please. James Bond.
James, we will miss the plane, and we will...
Hello, Paul. Bond here. Just to tell you we're off in a few minutes, and I want to thank you for everything.
So she kicks it into high gear because Tanya walks in the room, and this interaction between the two of them is outstanding. Because Bond, again, oblivious to anything going on, Tanya walks in and notices Klebb, and Klebb just really sternly, like, she puts her hand up to her mouth, like, shh, you don't say a word.
Yeah, right.
And her eyes, which we've seen dart before, are darting towards Bond to let Tanya know she better cooperate. I mean, this was really well done. She's stern. She's in she's in command here. Like you say, no words. Yeah. She doesn't know what Tanya's real plans are. And in fact, I'm not sure Tanya really knows either at this instant. And Klebb expects Tanya to help her, of course.
Yeah, I mean, again, all of this, Bond's thinking the porter's going to come up for the bags, and Klebb tries to take the Lecter. He says, no, I'll leave that. I'll take it, and so on. So all this stuff is happening simultaneously. Bond is oblivious to her being Klebb and doesn't know what's really going to happen. So she finally pulls a gun on Bond, and Bond is still on the phone. He stares at her. Klebb, he says. Like you said, what? He knows her. He knows Klebb. You didn't recognize her all this time. Yeah, maybe you weren't paying attention, whatever. Okay, that's fine, but now you know.
Hey, leave that. I'll take it. Huh? Oh, no.
So Klebb pulls a gun on Bond, but he's still on the phone, but he stares at her, and then the recognition. Klebb, he says.
Yeah.
So many times.
Hello, what was that you were saying? Hello.
Klebb.
So he finally pays attention. And I just love this because it took her pointing a gun at him for him to finally look at her. I mean, isn't James Bond supposed to be the cream of the crop? I mean, he's an MI6 agent. He's at the top.
That's why he was
Yeah,
sent
and
for
he
this,
doesn't
right?
recognize
Mission.
her earlier
Yeah.
when she walks in the room. I mean, it was a nice maid
Apparently not.
outfit she was wearing, and the wig hairband thing she was wearing changed her appearance, but I thought agents were supposed to be aware
Yeah.
of their surroundings.
It
Yeah,
only took him 5 seconds of her having the gun on him before he realized it.
exactly. And anyway, Klebb looks like she means business, but as we've said a million times in our podcast, just shoot him. Why doesn't she just
Shoot him.
shoot him right there and then?
Yeah, his hands are up in the air. She
Yeah.
has the gun on him. The
Yeah,
lector's right there.
She's got what she
Shut up.
needs, and she can take Bond out, which is part of the mission. And she's just staring at him.
Yeah, so she directs Bond to hang up the phone, gets his arms up, and like we said, without a word. All this like with boom, boom, boom with her hands and the gun and so on. When he hangs up, his arms are up, and Tanya opens the door. Tanya's reassuringly looking at Bond, though, a couple of times, telling him with her eyes and her head that, yeah, I didn't set this up, kind of thing. So it was well done.
So, yeah, I agree with you. This
Yeah.
really was well done. And I like it when a character does and portrays what they want without saying a word here. Because he
Yeah,
was
it's
initially on the
powerful.
phone, so she didn't want whoever he was talking to realize she was there. But after he hung up the phone, why didn't she say anything? She didn't need to. She can speak English, but Lotte Lenya does a great job here with the acting. But what were the script writers
Yep.
thinking? Again, just shoot him. I mean, she's got that gun on him for like a
Just shoot him.
minute. I mean,
Oh, yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I
shoot
know.
him.
Shoot him. All right. So Tanya delays a bit opening the door.
Romano, the door.
Romano!
Yeah, and I love how, as Tanya delays going to open the door, that Klebb screams at her. And that stern Romanov.
Yes.
I'm in control.
I'm in control.
And she was
Listen to me.
consistent with this one. That she's talked that way before to Tanya. Right?
Mhm.
If you do, you will be shot. Right? Again, really stern stuff.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not
here
messing
we are.
around. I control you. I mean, you just have to love the way she delivers this.
And then Tatiana opens the door reluctantly, of course, because she had to be yelled at twice. He had to be yelled at to open it. And Klebb takes Bond's gun from his holster and throws it on the floor. In control again. I'm in control. So far, number one would be proud. You can see the tension, though, in Klebb's face. Her lips and mouth are drawn down. She doesn't take her eyes off Bond, not even for a second. She hands the case
Just
to
shoot
Tanya.
him. Why did you take his gun from him? One squeeze of that trigger, the gun you're holding, you don't have a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
You could kill him. You'd kill him even with his gun in his
Yep.
holster. It'd be fine. When Tanya's out in the hall, though, Klebb starts to close the door, and there is a little squeak again to add to the tension, like in his symbol. Perhaps to muffle some of the sound from the gun when she shoots, and that's why she's closing the door, maybe if she ever shoots the dang gun. And there's a slight smile on her face, more of a smirk, like I got you and Elector finally. Yeah. So this is the final showdown. So Bond looks helpless, and for the first time, for Bond now, a woman is going to save the day for him. Tanya re-enters, knocking the gun out of Klebb's hand, and the final showdown now here begins.
Yeah, and the thing about this is her mission was twofold: to get the Lecter and to kill Bond. She's seemingly rejoicing in the fact she's going to get out of there with the Lecter. It's almost like she's forgetting to kill Bond.
Yeah. Well, she was going to. She intended to.
I
but
don't
she
know
didn't
that
do
she
it
was
fast enough.
intended. You couldn't
And
tell.
so, she's got the gun on him. She's closing the door. Yeah, she's going to kill him. But she should have done it sooner, like you said. All right. Klebb looked surprised when Tanya pushed the gun out of her hand and attacked her. So Klebb immediately goes to her backup plan. Hey, she's got a backup plan. Always have a backup plan.
Yeah, since you didn't
right?
just shoot him.
Yeah, I didn't shoot you, so now what? She clicks the shoe blade, like the shoe blade Morency used to kill Kronstein, coming out of the toe of her shoe. Bond quickly pulls up a chair to hold off Klebb. That's clever. Like a lion tamer pushing back a lion. It's a battle. You could go either way. We don't know yet. Klebb gets close once or twice to kicking Bond in the leg, but misses. And we know it only takes 12 seconds to kill you. So she's punching, kicking, grunting. Her sounds are great here, as it sounds like she's really struggling. Great body movement, action, and sound. So finally, we don't know what Tanya's going to do. We kind of think she's on Bond's side, right? But who knows? She's going back and forth, aiming the gun left and right. So maybe give us, maybe the audience, a doubt as to who she will really shoot. Finally, she shoots Klebb dead. Not a bad shot for someone who's not a field agent dealing with guns all the time. I thought she was pretty good.
But Tanya took action. She just shot her, right? And if Klebb had taken action, she'd be in a water taxi right now, right? And I love the way that Lotte Lenya has her death scene here. Her face, her scream, her arms flailing in the air as she slides down the wall. I mean, just a fantastic death scene that wasn't overplayed, but showed everything.
Yeah, and her mouth was agape the whole way down, sliding down the wall. She's dead.
And Tanya says, "Horrible woman." And Bond responds, "Yes, she's had her kicks."
So number 1 won't have to bother killing number 3 for failing.
Well, that was convenient.
that was nice, huh? All right. Now, in the novel by Fleming, of course, Rosa Klebb gets the better of Bond. She first uses poison-tipped knitting needles to try to kill Bond. But when Bond uses the chair, as he did in the movie, to pin her against the wall, Bond thinks he got her. He had knocked the needles away. But in comes Renee Mathis and others to take Klebb away when Klebb releases the blade in her shoe and kicks Bond. The blade retracts, and both Bond and Renee thought it was just a kick in the shins. But Bond started to feel numbness, had a hard time breathing, and fell to the floor. And that's how the novel ends. We do not know if Bond is alive.
And
the
interesting thing to me here is Fleming wasn't sure if he was going to kill Bond off. He was getting tired of Bond at this point.
Yeah,
like
maybe.
No Time to Die, right?
Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Exactly. And so to me, the fact that in the novel they leave it, we're not sure what's happened to Bond. Does he die? It's not a cliffhanger in the movie because they know they're going to do another Bond movie.
Yeah, it would have been. I think it would have been good if they had done that in No Time to Die. Actually, even leave it as a cliffhanger, but they didn't. But here in the movie, of course, throughout Lotte Lenya's performance, you can see the greatness of her acting through the delivery of her lines when in command and when she's tremendously worried, talking to number 1, to her facial expressions, body language, and gestures. Fantastic throughout all of her scenes. Absolutely stunning. And her character is critical to the story, and Lotte Lenya added to the depth of From Russia with Love with her magnificent portrayal of Rosa Klebb, and deserves to be in our character spotlight. We kick our shoes off to Lotte Lenya. All right, here's a quick little background on Lotte Lenya. Now, when Lotte Lenya portrayed Rosa Klebb here, she was at the tail end of her acting career. She was born October 18th, 1898 in Vienna, Penzing, Austria-Hungary, now Austria, as Caroline Wilhelmine Charlotte Blaumeyer. She began using her stage name Lotte Lenya when she moved to Zurich, Switzerland, where she studied dance. She was just over 5 foot tall. She did lots of stage work in Germany as well, with groundbreaking performances in plays by both Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht. She won a Tony Award in 1957 for a role as Jenny in a Broadway production of The Threepenny Opera. And Lenya had an Academy Awards nomination for Best Supporting Actress for a role as Contessa Magna Terbili Gonzalez, Vivian Leigh's friend, in The Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone.
This movie and acting career, I mean, she definitely was an accomplished actress, and it shows in From Russia with Love.
Yeah, her career stretches from 1931 through 1980. And so she was married to Kurt Weill. And the Bobby Darin's version of the song Mac the Knife, written by Lotte Lenya's husband, Kurt Weill, mentions her by name. If you recall some of the lyrics in there, her name is in the song Mac the Knife.
Look out to Miss Lotte Lenya, not to mention old Lucy Brown.
And actually, that's one of those trivia questions you'll sometimes see. In fact, we asked this question. Who was mentioned in what actor from a Bond movie is mentioned in the song Mac the Knife?
She passed away in 1981. Fantastic actor Lotte Lenya deserves to be in our character spotlight. All right, that's a wrap. Lotte Lenya gave us a memorable performance as Rosa Klebb in From Russia with Love. This has been Dan.
And Tom.
From SpyMovieNavigator.com and our show, Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. Please subscribe to our show through your favorite podcast app and on our YouTube channel as well. Thanks for listening. We appreciate you spending time with us.